So there were a couple of nightclubs that we went to in and around Durban. But the one everyone wanted to be at was the Palladium nightclub. In the 90s, it was one of the most popular nightclubs in Durban. It was a jewel. This was during apartheid, but somehow it managed to attract people of all colors and walks of life, each looking to spend an evening away from their reality. Two levels, private booths, an over the top lighting system with real lasers, a private area with its own dance floor and bar, and the biggest speakers I had ever seen. My first time at the Palladium, my sister and her boyfriend took me to a supper club one Sunday night. It was glorious. I had a Coke and samosas. One of the greatest nights of my life. It had the craziest location too. It was in an industrial area south of Durban, in an area called Prospecton. Chatsworth, Umlazi, and Wentworth were all located around the industries we were allowed to work at back then. You had to drive almost all the way through the industrial zone, down a dead-end road. At night, it was creepy, poorly lit, no foot traffic, poorly policed, not the kind of place you want to hang around. I grew up across the street from the Pelican nightclub in Unit 2, so I've seen a lot, but nothing like the full range of human emotions I've witnessed outside the Palladium nightclub in the 90s. I was in my last year of high school, and it was prom season. Schools were hosting events at one nightclub or another, so everyone's social calendar was packed. Puberty had finally come, and I was halfway out of that awkward-looking stage we all have to go through. I was 17. I loved going to nightclubs. Every opportunity was an opportunity for me to meet the woman of my dreams, and I probably met one every weekend. It was the third term of my final year in high school, and a couple of my school friends heard there was gonna be a banger of a school jol that coming Friday night at Palladium. As luck would have it, we even had a lift for us to get home, so all we needed was a way to get there. My dad agreed to drop off me and 3 friends. He asked me 3 times to confirm that we had a ride home. I calmed his fears by the time he dropped us off. He reminded me that I had tuition classes as part of my exam preparation the next morning. I said goodnight and off I went to enjoy the night the way I had built it up in my head. It didn't work out that way. We got the night mixed up and our ride home never showed. It was a bust. We tried to enjoy ourselves the best we could, but started planning our exit pretty early. We hung around outside the club, trying to get a ride back into Chatsworth, but no one had room for 4 of us, and we had decided we wanted to stick together. Eventually, we were the only ones outside, so we made a decision to walk. Thus began one of the longest nights of my life, me in my finest dress shoes. I think they were Pierre Cardin loafers, a black Milton jacket that I was still paying off, 3 school friends, and 16 kilometers between me and my bed. Out of the industrial area the way we came in, down the N2 freeway and up Higginson Highway, be home by 7 a.m. when my dad would wake me. It was harrowing, walking in the darkness. 4 of us, walking down the middle of the road because the edges were too dark, and we'd heard many horror stories about things that happened in that area after dark. We did our best to keep the mood light, joking like only 17-year-olds can, but I was really scared for the first time in my life. It was 3 a.m. when we made it to the N2 freeway on-ramp. We were almost saved when we got a lift from a minibus taxi. He could only take us to the Umlazi off-ramp 2 kilometers down the road, but we happily accepted his offer to help us knock any distance off this odyssey. The kilometers between there and Higginson were the worst for me. I could feel my pulse in my feet. I was too afraid to check if they were bleeding because there was nothing I could do about it. When we were at the Lamontville pedestrian bridge over the N2, I was most scared. That area used to house the hostels of factory workers. It was a notoriously dangerous part of Durban. It was so dark, you couldn't see your hand in front of your face. None of us uttered a word, we just kept on walking in silence. It was one of the longest nights of my life, so I had plenty of time to reflect on all my choices leading and trailing. We made it to the bus stop at Mobeni Heights Cemetery as the sun came up around 5:15 a.m. We got a ride in some guy's Toyota Bucky to the Bayview off-ramp. I started to feel myself again as we crested the top of 215. We split up to go to our respective homes, and I made it into bed by 6 a.m. I had worn holes in my socks. No bleeding, but my feet hurt so bad. I struggled to walk properly for days. My dad woke me at 7. And you know what I learned from that? Wear good walking shoes. I knew I'd lie to my parents again, and chances are I was gonna get stranded again too. But fuck if I had to do it in shitty shoes. My whole dress had to change to support my new philosophy. Runners weren't dressy back then. I tried hiking boots for a bit, but settled into a pair of brown caterpillars, and I proceeded to wear through 5 pairs of exactly the same shoe. I didn't relax that rule for 15 years. My wife helped me break the cycle pretty early in our relationship, but it wasn't until I was in my late 30s that I realized how that cycle had formed at all. How a poor choice when I was 17 somehow branded me and molded my choices long after. Shout out to Pregs, who walked me home and then walked himself home in Unit 3. Shout out to my people in Chatsworth, and shout out to all the walkers and turners.